Now, our character is going to be wearing a sort of, I envisioned it as kind of a velour or a velvet kind of jumpsuit underneath some of the other more ornate clothing that he's going to be wearing. I see him as sort of an ambassador or some kind of a high ranking alien official at some kind of official function. So he's going to have this sort of ornate clothing. And so this is going to be sort of a patterned jumpsuit underneath. So because it's going to be so form fitting, we can actually extract it directly from the body that we've already sculpted. So if we go to the main tool here, all we want to do is create a mask where we want the jumpsuit to be. And so I think I'm going to make mine go kind of down to the forearm. And then also, I think right past the knee, let's say. So right down here. And so there are several ways you could do this. You could mask everything and then unmask the areas that you don't want. But I do want to do a few different things. Up here on the neck, I want to make sure that I have like a more of a V shape, like that. And then, go all the way around, meet up in the back. And then around the shoulder, I want to have an opening here. So I want to have an opening around the shoulder. And then I want to have openings on the back here. I haven't really talked about this, but I want to have where the wings have been filed down. And so I want to make sure that I've got kind of a hole there. Remembering that anywhere that's unmasked is going to be, you're going to see the skin through there. It's not going to be part of the clothing. And then let's also make an opening around the elbows. Kind of like that. And then what we can do is just basically fill in the rest of this. And you can get a bigger brush if you want. Just fill in the rest of this with our masking. I want to make sure not to miss anything. So I'm going to go ahead and mask the rest of this really quickly. So there, I've got my mask drawn out. You can see I added a down here on the leg, a little bit of a cut in. Make sure that we have a little V neck up at the neck. And we've got the openings for the elbows and some of these other areas. So once you get the mask the way that you want, make sure that any place that's supposed to be masked is completely covered in the masking. So you don't want any light areas that you may have missed. So once you have that, what we're going to do is come down to Subtool, and we're going to come down to Extract. And your values may be a little bit different. And the cool thing is you can experiment all day long without committing this to a subtool. And so mine are set to about 50 in the smoothing with the circle enabled. And then the thickness I have about 0.005, which is a really small amount, but it's going to give me, I think, the thickness that I want. Okay, I'm going to turn off double-sided, and so it's only going to create the thickness and then the outer side of it. It's not going to create the side that's right up against the skin because we don't need that side. So if we hit extract, it's going to give us an indication of what it's going to look like. So there you can see the thickness. If I were to create a higher thickness amount, that would stick off of the surface, but we want this to be a pretty thin garment, but we still do want it to have some thickness. So once you get it to the thickness that you want, to turn this into a subtool, all you have to do is hit accept. So we'll hit accept. Now this has become a new subtool, which you can see here, has some masking on it. You can turn that masking off, and then we can come down on this subtool, and we can see we can turn this into a Dynamesh, or we can just simply continue to sculpt it. If we turn it into a Dynamesh, it's going to close up the inner part of it. So we'll avoid that for now. I do want to come in and kind of smooth out the areas around the openings. Okay, I'm just hitting that with a little bit of smooth. Same thing around the arms, up around the neck, and down here as well. Okay, so now we don't want all of this body definition in our suit. It is tight fitting, but it's not that tight fitting. And so what we want to do is hold down Shift, and I'm just going to come in and hit this with some smoothing so we don't get all of that detail. And we can increase our smoothing amount if you want. Kind of come in here. You can see around all these, the bones that we're getting and the legs. And so we can start to smooth that out a little bit. We can also come in and let's just get our standard brush. And let's turn off our symmetry. And we can start to come in here. Let's get a lower intensity and draw size and just start to maybe sculpt some kind of wrinkles and where the fabric is raised up here between two high points, maybe between the ribs. Okay. We may also have some areas here where the fabric is kind of pulled away. And so we don't want this to be really symmetrical. So kind of come in and just do this without having the symmetry on. Coming across there. Okay, we definitely don't want it to be that tight back here. So I'm just going to kind of scope this out. Okay, along the back, kind of smooth this out. And we are going to be adding an extra piece down here along the abdomen. So we'll just keep that in mind. Along the back here, smooth out under the arms. Up here along the neck. Now they're not going to be as big. And so let's go ahead and kind of get some detail going there. Kind of coming down from the openings here, coming across. And just add some variation in here. Smooth out those sort of seams right there. So something to where it's still pretty tight, but now we're getting a little bit more of that look like it's kind of stretched across it. Okay, so coming across the arms, we could make some sort of wrinkles going across there. Same thing with the legs. We're not getting too specific. Like if you want to do like a looser garment, you're going to have to look at some sort of some reference for wrinkles, because there's really some specific kinds of looks that you'll get with different kinds of wrinkles. Here, we're working with something that's pretty tight, and so I think it's going to be fine. And a lot of this is going to be covered with some other details, and so I think it's going to be fine to just do some of these basic wrinkle kind of looks here. Again, coming from areas that are tighter, other high point areas basically, and seeing those wrinkles come across. So, something like that. We can come in here and add a little bit coming down from the pectoral and coming around the arms maybe. We don't have symmetry on, so you're going to have to remember to go and do the other side as well when you do these. So something like that. All right, let me smooth out this opening here as well. Okay, so once you've got your jumpsuit and you've added just a little bit of detail to it, you can also use move. Come in here and get the move brush. We can kind of move some of these out and just kind of smooth them back into the surface there. So again, it gives you the indication of the underlying body. And then some of these you can also, you don't want to do this on all of them, but you could take the Damien Standard brush, go back in and just add a little bit of sharpness to some of these wrinkles, just in maybe a couple areas. And you might even take the intensity down a little bit and follow along on the underside of some of these wrinkles, and maybe in some of these areas where it's going to be bunched together a bit tighter. And if you see that come through, that just means that you're seeing the body underneath, and so you would just need to go to your move brush and move that out. So grab move, and we just move that out. All right, so let's get it to point something like that. I've gone a little overboard, but that's okay. So get it to a point, something like that. And then in the next clip, we will add a sash that kind of goes across the abdomen to kind of start layering some of these different clothing items on top. So we'll do that next.